Courtney Hadwin was discovered like something out of a Hollywood screenplay. A painfully shy girl from the tiny former pit village of Heselden in County Durham, England, population barely enough to fill a school bus. She had a stutter. She struggled to make eye contact. Her parents worried constantly about how she would ever navigate a world that seemed too loud and too fast for her gentle nature. But when she sang, something magical happened. Her first audition for America's Got Talent in 2018 was the stuff of legend. She performed Otis Redding's Hard to Handle with a raw, primal energy that seemed impossible coming from such a small frame. She threw her body into every note. She growled like a blues veteran. She owned that stage in a way that made seasoned performers look like amateurs. Howie Mandel hit the golden buzzer before her song even finished. He later declared backstage, "I have never been more excited in my life." Simon Cowell stood up, applauding like a proud father. The comparison to Janis Joplin spread like wildfire across social media. Within days, her audition video had been viewed over 100 million times. Courtney advanced all the way to the finals. Bookmakers listed her as the favorite to win the $1 million prize. Simon Cowell was already rumored to be preparing a record deal. Arista Records and Psycho Music would eventually sign her to a multi-disc agreement. The narrative was perfect. The shy girl who conquered the world. The underdog who became a lion. But here is where the story starts to crack. Because if everything was so perfect, why did Courtney Hadwin disappear? Before the world discovered Courtney Hadwin, another story was already unfolding. One that should have warned everyone what was coming. In 2017, just 1 year before her AGT explosion, Courtney auditioned for The Voice Kids UK, and she was rejected, not just passed over, completely dismissed. She performed her heart out, but none of the coaches turned their chairs around. She went home crushed, carrying the quiet humiliation of being told, in so many words, that she was not good enough for the British stage. What happened next was even worse. Back at school in her small village, the bullying started. Classmates laughed at her deep, raspy voice. They mocked the way she sang. Some cruelly called her a boy because her voice did not fit their narrow expectations of what a girl should sound like. The very thing that made her special became the weapon used against her. Courtney later admitted that she expressed herself better singing than talking. Her voice was her escape. But when that escape led to ridicule, the shy girl retreated even further inside herself. Then came the busking story that still haunts her memory. As a young girl, Courtney would perform on street corners, earning money to pay for her own singing lessons. But even there, she could not catch a break. Other buskers asked her to move along because her powerful voice was stealing their crowds. Think about that. A child chased off the street because she was too talented. By the time America's Got Talent came calling, Courtney was already carrying deep scars. Her awkwardness on that first audition was not a cute quirk. It was genuine fear. The trembling was real. The wide eyes were not a performance. So when the world suddenly embraced her with open arms, when Simon Cowell praised her tenacity and compared her to a lion, Courtney must have felt like she was dreaming. But dreams have a cruel way of turning into nightmares. And the warning signs were already there, hidden in plain sight. The biggest question nobody was asking yet was this: could a child who had already been rejected, bullied, and pushed aside survive the crushing weight of sudden global fame? The answer would break everyone's heart. For a while, everything looked fine from the outside. Courtney signed her record deal. She performed on America's Got Talent, the champions in 2019, returning to the stage that made her famous. The comparisons to Janis Joplin continued. Howie Mandel doubled down, calling her the biggest talent of the season. Simon Cowell threw his full weight behind her career. But behind the scenes, insiders started noticing something deeply troubling. The music industry had a very specific plan for Courtney Hadwin, and that plan did not involve letting her be herself. According to sources close to the production, the labels wanted to mold her into a safe, pre-made pop star. They handed her songs that sounded like pure Ariana Grande pop. They sent her to write with people who had no understanding of her musical soul. They wanted shiny, radio-friendly hits. They wanted a product they could sell. But Courtney loved James Brown. She loved Tina Turner. She loved the raw, gritty, bluesy rock that had poured out of her during that first audition. She was not a glossy pop princess. She was something much rawer and much harder to package. The pressure became unbearable. Courtney later described being thrown into the deep end. She was suddenly expected to write songs with strangers, to perform music that felt nothing like her, to smile and nod while her artistic identity was slowly erased. The shy girl who had finally found her voice was being told to use someone else's. Then came the social media nightmare. As Courtney grew older, as she naturally changed from a child into a young woman, she noticed something disturbing. Her online fans did not want her to grow up. They wanted her to stay that 13-year-old girl forever. They clung to the viral video. They resisted every new photo, every new song, every sign that she was becoming something different. Courtney felt trapped. She said she had to prove she was more than the girl from that TV show every single day. Every single day. The weight of that pressure is almost impossible to imagine. Insiders began whispering that Courtney was struggling, that she felt lost, that the industry machine that was supposed to launch her career was actually suffocating her. But the worst was yet to come. Because just before her 16th birthday, everything collapsed completely. The documented evidence of Courtney's struggles is heartbreaking to piece together. First, the bullying escalated. Even as millions cheered for her online, the real-world cruelty continued. Fellow students mocked her. Trolls dismissed her as a shouter rather than a real singer. The disconnect between how the world saw her and how the people around her treated her created a psychological fracture that no teenager should have to endure. Second, the Janis Joplin label became a curse rather than a compliment. Howie Mandel was the first to make the comparison, and it stuck like glue. But for a young girl still forming her own identity, being constantly told she was the reincarnation of a troubled rock legend who died at 27 was not inspiring. It was terrifying. Clive Davis, the legendary music executive who famously discovered Janis Joplin at a festival, was repeatedly invoked as part of the parallel. The industry wanted Courtney to fill those shoes. They wanted her to channel that same wild, self-destructive energy. They wanted a performance, not a person. Courtney later made it clear that this pressure was too much for a teenager to handle. She was not Janis Joplin. She was a kid from a mining village who just wanted to sing. Third, the record deal itself became a cage. Courtney had signed with Psycho Music, Simon Cowell's label, in partnership with Arista Records. On paper, this was a dream come true. 2 major labels backing a young talent. But in practice, Courtney found herself trapped in a system that did not understand her. She was given songs she could not connect with. She was pushed toward a sound that was not hers. She later admitted that the entire experience felt inauthentic and crushing. And then the unthinkable happened. The label collapsed. Before Courtney even turned 16, Psycho Music shut down. The structure that was supposed to support her career simply evaporated. She was left stranded with no label, no team, and no clear path forward. The machine that had promised to make her a star had broken down and left her in the dust. The evidence was undeniable by now. The perfect image was shattered. The shy girl who had roared like a lion was now facing the music industry's cruelest reality. It does not care about you. It only cares about what you can sell. But Courtney had one move left, and it was a move that shocked everyone. This is the moment everything changed. Courtney Hadwin made a decision that most people in her position would never have the courage to make. She said no. When the offers came in, and they did come in from major labels eager to capitalize on her AGT fame, Courtney refused them. Multi-million-dollar contracts, life-changing amounts of money, the kind of deals that would have guaranteed financial security for her entire family. She turned them all down. Why? Because every single one came with strings attached. They wanted to turn her into something she was not. Pre-made pop, safe, radio-friendly nonsense that bore no resemblance to the blues rock fire that had made the world fall in love with her in the first place. Courtney walked away. She returned home to England. She disappeared from the spotlight. The girl who had been watched by hundreds of millions of people went back to her small village and simply vanished from the public eye for years. While other AGT alumni chased fame, released forgettable singles, and burned out before they turned 21, Courtney Hadwin chose silence. She chose obscurity. She chose to protect herself, even if it meant sacrificing everything she had worked for. The media speculated. Fans wondered if she had quit music entirely. Some assumed she had been dropped. Others thought she had simply faded away, like so many child stars before her. But they were wrong. Behind closed doors, Courtney was fighting the hardest battle of her life. Not against the industry this time, against something much deeper. She was fighting to remember who she was before the world tried to change her. She was fighting to find her authentic voice, not the one the labels wanted her to use. The turning point came when she finally realized something crucial. The people who had wanted her to stay 13 forever, who resisted every sign of her growth, who demanded she remain the cute viral sensation, were not her real fans. They were holding her prisoner. Courtney later poured all of this pain into a single song, a song that would become her declaration of independence. But she was not ready to share it yet, not until she was absolutely sure she had found herself again. The wait was agonizing for those who had been following her journey. And then, after years of silence, Courtney Hadwin finally spoke. Let us connect the dots. Because the full picture of what happened to Courtney Hadwin is far more complex and far more inspiring than the tragedy narrative suggests. What really happened was a battle between authenticity and exploitation. From the moment she stepped onto that AGT stage, Courtney was caught between two versions of herself: the shy, stuttering girl who could barely introduce herself, and the explosive, raw performer who came alive only when the music started. The world fell in love with the performer. But they forgot about the girl. The industry wanted to capture that performer and put her in a box. They wanted to manufacture that magic on demand. They wanted Courtney to become a brand. But Courtney refused. The bullying she endured, both before and after fame, left deep scars. Being mocked for your voice, when your voice is your only form of self-expression, is a special kind of cruelty. Yet instead of breaking her, that cruelty eventually forged something unbreakable. When the label collapsed, Courtney saw it as a sign, not a failure, a release. She walked away from millions of dollars because those millions came with a price tag she was not willing to pay. Her soul, her authenticity, her right to grow and change and become whoever she wanted to become. For years, she worked quietly. She wrote songs that meant something to her. She experimented with sounds that felt right. She refused to rush. She refused to compromise. And slowly she began to heal. The song that captured all of this pain and triumph was called "You Only Love Me When I Lie." The title alone is a dagger. Courtney explained that the song was about people who refused to let go of the image they have in their heads. Fans who wanted her to stay 13 forever. The industry that wanted her to pretend to be someone she was not. They only loved her when she was lying about who she really was. Another track, Die and Stay Pretty, cut even deeper. It talked about watching people make bad choices and lose themselves while trying to maintain a perfect appearance. A scathing critique of the very industry that had tried to consume her. By 2025, Courtney was finally ready. She released her debut album, Little Miss Jagged. The title itself is a confession. She is jagged. She is not smooth or polished or easy to package. And that is exactly what makes her extraordinary. But there is still one question that haunts this story. One final mystery that nobody has been able to answer. Why did Courtney wait so long? What was really happening during those missing years? And what finally gave her the courage to return? The answer will change how you see everything. Here is the truth that nobody saw coming. Courtney Hadwin was not a victim of the music industry. She was its victor. While other artists signed away their rights, surrendered their creative control, and burned out before they turned 25, Courtney played the long game. She said no when saying yes would have been easier. She walked away when walking away meant losing everything. And she waited. She waited until the contracts expired. She waited until the hype died down and the vultures moved on to fresh prey. And then, when nobody was watching, she rebuilt herself from the ground up. The shocking revelation is this: Courtney Hadwin was never broken by fame. She was protected from it by her own fierce refusal to compromise. Those multi-million-dollar contracts she rejected, they would have turned her into a puppet. She would have released 3 forgettable singles, been dropped by year 2, and spent the rest of her career doing nostalgia tours and wondering what might have been. Instead, she kept her integrity. She kept her voice. And she waited until she had something real to say. In 2025, at 21 years old, Courtney finally released Little Miss Jagged. The album was not a cash grab. It was not a desperate attempt to stay relevant. It was a statement, a declaration that she had survived the machine and emerged on her own terms. The song, "You Only Love Me When I Lie," became an anthem for anyone who has ever felt trapped by other people's expectations. The video for Die and Stay Pretty, released in January 2026, showed a Courtney Hadwin that fans had never seen before. Confident, angry, powerful, and completely, unapologetically herself. In February 2026, she announced her first major UK tour, including a show at the legendary Hare and Hounds in Birmingham. The same girl who had once been chased off street corners by jealous buskers was now headlining her own concerts. Not as a novelty act, not as a former child star, as a grown artist with something to say. And here is the final twist that the music industry does not want to know. Courtney Hadwin did not fail. The system failed her. And she walked away anyway. She chose her mental health over fame. She chose her authentic voice over manufactured hits. She chose to be a real person rather than a product. In an industry built on exploitation, that is the most rebellious act possible. So, when you watch that golden buzzer video today, do not just see the shy girl who became a lion. See the warrior who walked through fire and came out the other side, not just intact, but stronger. See the teenager who had the courage to tell Simon Cowell and every other music executive that she would rather be nothing than be a lie. Courtney Hadwin did not disappear because she failed. She disappeared because she refused to fail on anyone's terms but her own. And now she is back. Not as the girl America thought they wanted, but as the woman she was always meant to become.